Now, Cory Kenshin, an extremely successful YouTuber who was once considered one of the fastest growing creators on the entire platform. With over 22 million subscribers, he's known for his comedic gameplay videos, wholesome energy, and the way he built a fan base without ever clout chasing. Almost 3 years ago, I made a video about Cory Kenshin. Some of y'all might remember that one. At the time, he had just called out YouTube for what he believed was biased treatment towards his content. He dropped a video titled Racism and Favoritism, where he spoke on how YouTube age restricted one of his videos while other creators didn't get touched. And that moment sparked a real conversation, because it was essentially a conversation about how black content creators don't always get the same benefits as other creators. And as a black content creator myself, I felt like I had to speak on it back then. But aside from it relating to black YouTubers, I also felt like, yo, I'm a creator too. So if a guy of this size who looks like me can go through it, then obviously it ain't safe for none of us, okay? Aside from that, I want to have a conversation about a recent controversy Cory Kenshin found himself in. Recently, some allegations surfaced against Cory, and spoiler alert, those allegations have already been proven false. But even with that being the case, I still think there's a conversation to be had about accountability, about false accusations, about how quickly the internet jumps to conclusions. So here's what happened. A few days ago, a woman on TikTok who goes by the name of Panda Ninja came out with a story. She claimed that she had dated Cory back in 2018, and in a series of TikTok videos, she posted screenshots explaining their relationship and detailing their interactions. Aside from the screenshots, there was one video she posted that really blew up, and it was what set the tone for the entire narrative. In the clip, Cory and the woman are seen walking together, and she's recording as they casually talk. And at one point she asks him, "Did you watch me sleep?" And Cory responds by saying, "I did something to you while you were asleep too." Now obviously when taken out of context, that kind of response can sound alarming. So what ended up happening is people clipped it, reposted it, and started spinning it into a narrative, a very serious one, about what really happened in that clip.
Did you watch me sleep? Did you watch me sleep?
Yeah, I actually did something to you while you were asleep too.
What?
I'm sorry, I just got this fetish that I do,
What?
I didn't hurt you, you're good, right?
What'd you do, Cory?
Don't worry about it.
Cory, what did you do?
Do nothing. Look, this came right in my face, I didn't do anything.
He did something, and I'm gonna find out on the next episode of
Dragon Ball Z, where you going with this?
And keep in mind, they were dating at the time, right? And it seems like they were joking. I mean, Cory was not a stranger to this woman at that particular time, right? She's laughing, he's laughing, and to me it comes across like this was just a dynamic they had off camera. That's the vibe that I got. I'm not gonna put a negative connotation on something that in the moment, both people seem to be enjoying. If that was their thing, then so be it. I'm not gonna judge. But here's where things took a turn, right? She posted that same video with the caption, "POV, you didn't know this would be one of the videos you'd look back on and realize he never cared. He just wanted to see how long you'd let him hurt you." So now we're supposed to look at that video, the one where they were both, clearly playing around, and suddenly see it as something dark, as if Cory had, done something malicious to her while she was asleep. But obviously when you watch the clip, clearly this is two people joking around. There's no tension, no fear, just banter. And you can of course be the judge of that. Another one of the posts that went viral came from a Discord conversation they apparently had, where she told Cory she had cancer. His response was, "That was the most passive-aggressive cancer reveal ever. No one really knows what was said before this, or what even happened privately. And at the end of the day, it's a screenshot of a one-liner from a private conversation without full context, tone, or backstory." In another screenshot she shared, there was a different conversation, one that felt a little more personal. I don't know exactly what led up to it, but here's how it played out. She asks, "Wanted me how?" Cory replies, "Like how I've had you." She then responds, "Like in a relationship type of way or something else?" Cory answers, "Like something else." And she finishes with, "That's kind of messed up. I wasn't a toy." So we got different fragments from a bigger conversation with no real insight into, the full back and forth or timeline. So in a situation like this, obviously it's important to note, being emotionally hurt or feeling used doesn't automatically mean that you were abused, right? Now, if that's what actually happened between them, I may not think it's morally right, but it doesn't mean that a crime was committed, right? Like it was claimed in this situation. People are in toxic and dysfunctional relationships every day by choice. If both parties willingly stay in something messy, that doesn't automatically make one person an abuser. It makes it a complicated, unhealthy relationship. But once you take that kind of situation and try to reframe it online as something darker, especially creating a narrative and given the type of context that you want the world to see, at that point, it's not you seeking righteous justice. And unfortunately, that kind of thing always spills over, and it ends up hurting the people who actually need to be heard the most. Now, those were just a few screenshots out of, I don't know exactly how many slides she posted, but it was a lot. Multiple TikToks, several posts, and a bunch of screenshots where she explained how Cory allegedly emotionally used and abused her and manipulated her and treated her poorly, according to her. And once the story started going viral, the internet did what it always does. People started condemning him, making assumptions, and painting him as someone who had done something deeply wrong, all based on screenshots and her side of the story. And the one thing that happened after this was one of her old friends, like, this woman who accused CoryxKenshin of these things, she ended up coming out and she had a couple interesting things to say.
I had literally just posted a video about my experience with a woman who accused CoryxKenshin of emotional abuse. Let me add a little bit of extra third-party context here. This is little 21-year-old me and Nami at the time. Notice that the side of her head is shaved. I'm saying this because even though the timeline wasn't confirmed based off of the videos that she posted and the messages that she was trying to circulate not having a timestamp, I'm pretty sure this was around the time I lived with her, if not slightly before. When we did live together, she did very briefly tell me about Cory, but more in like we didn't actually date, we just kind of talked, but because he was busy with YouTube stuff, it didn't work out. But while I lived with her, before I even moved out here in May of 2017, she was already actively dating someone, a mutual friend of ours who I will not name because he's not into the drama. It's been 8 years, and then immediately after they broke up, she was dating somebody else, so things just didn't really add up, you know what I'm saying? Not to mention, there's going to be a lot of people who know her and are going to be able to call her out because we had a humongous friend group in K-Town in New York, so really interesting to see how many people are willing to come out and tell you guys that they know for a fact that she's lying because she's just always kind of been a shady person.
It eventually got to the point where she went live on TikTok to respond. And she said, I said 1,000 times that I did not get essayed by Cory.
And I'm going to say this again. I never said he essayed me.
And then she also put up another post saying, for clarification, he did not essay me. But that only came after the whole thing had already gone viral. So this story, as you probably guessed, blew up. Cory's a pretty big name in the YouTube space, and there's hardly ever any drama surrounding him. He barely even pops out for his own content, let alone anything messy. So when something like this hits his name, it's gonna spread fast. Now, even after it was made clear that nothing had actually happened, like nothing criminal had happened, people started kind of, moving the goalposts, saying things like, okay, maybe he didn't do anything illegal, but based on those conversations, he was still being emotionally abusive and whatnot. And that, of course, led to this entire story blowing up. We've spoken about topics like this before. Some of y'all might have seen my video on the YouTuber and rapper Young Philly, who got arrested last year in Australia on serious rape allegations. Now, that story was an actual legal case. He got extradited from one city to another by the Australian government. There's an entire investigation, charges, and a case over his head. Those allegations are on the record. They're real. They're active. And they're being handled by the Australian authorities. But this CoryxKenshin situation is obviously different. This is someone coming online and trying to represent something that happened as one thing when it's clearly something else. And look, I don't really know, the full relationship dynamic between, Cory and this woman, right? But what I do know is that situations like this obviously doesn't help real victims of essay or abuse. It waters down what it means to come forward. It turns serious issues into meaningless drama. And when that happens, everyone loses, but especially the people who've been through real pain and now have to fight even harder to be believed. I can't speak for what she thinks her agenda was, but the way it looks to me, it looks like someone who wanted to go viral, not someone who genuinely wanted to try to hold another person accountable for real harm that they might have done. Because if that was the goal, you wouldn't leave room for this much confusion. You wouldn't present something one way, then backtrack after it spreads. Speaking of this conversation, right, I believe that there are way more women in this world who don't report when, something happens to them in a situation like this than the ones who actually do. Now, why is that? Well, the number one reason that I believe that, because deep down, a lot of these women, they don't really feel like they're going to be believed. There's so many women walking around with stories they've never told anybody. They were in situations where they felt helpless, where their boundaries were crossed beyond anything they could have ever imagined. And once that happened, it wasn't just their trust that was taken, it was a piece of their innocence. Anyone they came in contact with after that point who said, "You're safe with me," they couldn't feel it, they couldn't believe it, because that trust was taken advantage of in a previous interaction they had with somebody. A part of who they were got left behind in that moment. So a lot of women who have things done to them, they end up staying silent because they've seen what happens when someone speaks up in a lot of situations. They end up getting questioned, picked apart, and a lot of times even blamed themselves. And if the person they're accusing is well known, you already know how that goes, right? And this is why I'm always going to believe in holding that space for victims to speak up. But here's the thing. When people lie about stuff like this, they don't just damage the person they're accusing. They damage all the women I'm talking about. The ones who, to most people, aren't even real, just background noise in an online debate. Just another thread, another headline, another comment section argument. But those women actually exist. They carry real pain. And when someone makes a false claim for attention, it makes it even harder for real survivors to speak up and be heard. With how fast things move on social media these days, a false portrayal can reach millions of people before the truth even has a chance to speak. And once that image is out there, even if it's fake, it sticks. And that's the danger. And a lot of times too, we've seen this in so many stories, but people don't care about hearing the truth because the lie is more entertaining. It gets more clicks, more comments, more outrage. It spreads faster, and it feels better to believe when you're looking for someone to judge. And that's the problem. It becomes more about gossip than actually caring about what happened to another human being. Whether that's someone having something done to them, or like in this case, someone falsely being accused of doing something they did not do. Either way, the humanity gets lost. I look at the story and honestly just think, this looks like two people who were in a toxic and dysfunctional relationship, or a situationship, or whatever you want to call it, over 7 years ago. And obviously, since I don't know the full story, because what usually gets televised is only a fraction of the truth, I'm not going to sit here and judge the relationship itself too harshly, because I don't really know, right? I'm just an outsider. What I will judge, however, is the fact that this person misrepresented what happened, and for that reason, it's really hard to believe anything they're saying. And that's the part I think is important to focus on, because it's not about this woman and it's not really about Cory. Because at the end of the day, most people are just going to move on after the drama dies down and ignore the damage that was done along the way. And I think that's a shame, because at the end of the day, this kind of story is about the women out there that they don't even have the words to describe. And stories like this makes it harder for, those voices to actually break through the noise. That's what I gotta say. Anyway, if you made it this far, drop a like on this video if you enjoyed this conversation. If you're new here, my name is Blacky Speez. Nice to meet you. Subscribe if you, want to see my ugly ad popping up on your screen again, okay? And to all the new people, nice to know ya. Let's do it again. Y'all know that song? Anyway, any thoughts on this topic right here? Curious to hear what you guys have to say. Greatly appreciate you for watching. And I'll catch you guys in the comment section below. But most importantly of all, I'll catch you guys in the next video, man. I'm out. Peace.